What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 263 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have Adrian Bartels of Cedar Springs Landscapes. He is the president, and we get into a wide variety of topics, including his roles and responsibilities as president of a landscaping business. And this is the along the lines of some guests that I'm going to be bringing on the show this year to kind of dive into what roles and responsibilities look like for CEOs and for presidents, COOs, and all these different titles beyond being an owner-operator. So what is the day-to-day of somebody beyond being an owner-operator in their hardscape business, and especially larger multi-crew businesses and offering different service lines as well. But before we get into today's episode, we want to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA and let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there at www.cyclecpa.com. And if you're looking for a software to dive into this season, check out the How to Hardscape headquarters. You can learn more at members.howtohardscape.com. There's budgeting, estimating, job costing, time tracking, scheduling, so much more there. And our installation training courses are also available within it that you can also assign to onboard new employees or to train up existing employees. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Adrian Bartels. Today, we're joined by Adrian Bartels. He is the president of Cedar Springs Landscapes. Adrian, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Let's get started to get to know a little bit more about you yourself, how you got started in the industry to where you are today with Cedar Spring Landscapes. Start wherever you want, finish wherever you want, and then we'll kind of pick apart that and see where this conversation takes us.
Sure. I think, I didn't grow up dreaming of being a landscaper, if I'm honest. Not that I had anything against it, but in high school, I started working for, at that time, Cedar Springs was a small company. I started working for the owner of the company. His name was Jack Whiskey. Great boss. Enjoyed working for him. I did reasonably well in school, but I didn't like school. I didn't see myself going into anything that required a lot of schooling. You know, maybe some people might say it's ADD or whatever, but so out of high school, I just kept working. I was on a crew and I was doing landscape maintenance then, and it wasn't long, and the opportunity to run the maintenance department came up, and I did that. And back then, it was 2 or 3 crews. It was nothing huge. And over the years, I let Jack know that I was interested in ownership, and or I would probably go start my own thing. And Jack was very open-minded and amenable. And so pretty soon, I became a minority partner, and then over the years, bought my way into a partnership that was 50-50 partners. And over that time, the company was growing pretty rapidly. That was probably between 2001 and 2008, somewhere in there. We experienced a lot of growth, and sort of the brand, Cedar Springs brand, started to evolve. And we became, I guess, what you would maybe say a reasonable player in the landscape industry. 2008, the economy kind of took a bit of a dip. And it was at that time that we got into commercial landscaping. And my partner, Jack, he really pushed the commercial landscaping end of it, and we rebranded it as CSL Group. CSL Group still operates to this day. And in 2014, Jack and I decided to split part ways. He was heavily involved in the commercial side of it. My love was really in the residential side. Over the years, I got increasingly into residential landscape design and sort of that became my love. I would say probably from 2005 on, I really grew a love for landscaping and design and all that. So um, to this day, I'm still very involved in the design and sales of our company. So 2014, we split. Cedar Springs Landscaping ran independently from CSL Group, continued to operate independently with different ownership structures. And I am the sole owner currently of Cedar Springs Landscape Group. And so here we are today. So another 10 years has passed, and we've continued to build our brand, and I continue to be very involved in the landscape design and sales of the company.
Going back to wanting to become a partner in the business of some sort, or pursue ownership, what was it about Jack that made you consider, at least at the time, to become part owner as opposed to going off on your own, which I think a lot of people might do. And so what was it about Jack that made you think that maybe being a partner would be a good idea? And then vice versa, what do you think Jack saw in you that made him think that you would be a good partner?
Yeah, well, you might have to have Jack on for your own podcast with him one day. But anyway, Jack is very entrepreneurial. He's a risk taker, and um, any idea was always yes with Jack. And so um, Jack had entrepreneurials don't see risk generally. That's kind of a distinction between entrepreneurial people and people that are less so, I guess. It's how you see risk. Jack didn't see any risk. And so when I suggested that I would like to be a partner, fine. Okay, good. Let's see what it looks like, and let's move on. At that time, I think I was quite involved in landscape sales and design. And I mean, he had a decision before him, I guess. Um, Either you risk losing this guy, and if he's of any value, then you risk losing a valuable member of your team. And I suppose, or owning a smaller percentage of something larger is better than owning 100% of something smaller. That's presumably the thought process that Jack had. In my own mind, yeah, I could have started on my own, but you know that it's not easy starting any business. And we had something going. I knew the people. There was obviously um, something going on in the company that was appealing. Jack had an appealing character to, very infectious, very exciting place to work for because it was growing, and that's just exciting. It's not exciting maybe for everybody because rapid growth means change. But for me, I found it very exciting. And so that's what I did. And it was low risk for me, I mean, yeah, I did buy in. I had to mortgage my house to buy into the company, but I could see around me the jobs were coming in, the brand was developing, and there was work, and going on my own would have meant obviously, all the risks associated with starting a business. You got no clients, you got no employees, you got no equipment, and you're going to go jump into a market. And I was obviously young at the time, so yeah, so that's kind of how that situation evolved.
And then how did your roles and responsibilities change and develop over time from that initial buy-in phase to becoming 50-50 partners? How did you see that evolution of your roles and responsibilities in the business change and balance that with Jack? Were you complementary in terms of your personalities and what you took on, or was there some sort of clash at any point in time?
Yeah, I think because Jack was always quite involved with the crews, the guys, he sort of defaulted to a little bit more of the operation side of it. I really enjoyed the sales, and so I stuck more with the sales and marketing end of things, and Jack kind of evolved into the operations. Now, as the company grew, both of them got to be too big for either of us. So we hired on salespeople, and then I took on I continued to do sales, but we hired second and third salespeople, and he hired operations managers, and there was, on the one side, on the residential side, there was probably 10 crews, and on the commercial side, there was probably another 6 to 10 crews going. And so I think Jack probably kept more on the operations side of it, although he was a real driver too in terms of new ideas, new initiatives. Um, so that's kind of how that evolved. Now today, kind of fast forwarding that, as I've gone on my own, and the high end, sort of the high end residential landscape business that we're running, I had a really good operations manager that came along on our side, and he sort of took over the operation. So that worked out for me. And I always feel very strongly in doing what you love to do. That old adage, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's really, I've continued to believe very strongly in that, because I love sales. I love meeting people. I love the creative end of it. I love the flexibility of the schedule. You can make your own schedule. And so to this day, I love sales. I don't ever see myself not doing sales. It's invigorating, and it really, like, I don't think there's a better job. There's not a single job in this world I would prefer to do, honestly. So so I'm right where I want to be, and I've surrounded myself with people much smarter and better than me at all the other things, and that's not hard to do. So we've got a great general manager in place now. He manages. He does the very thing that I don't enjoy doing, but this is the kind of thing he loves to do. Take minutes, detail things, just plow through um, sort of what I would consider mundane, boring stuff. This is the kind of stuff that he just makes him tick. And he's looking at spreadsheets and analyzing numbers and doing all the kind of work that a manager would do. And then we have so he's more the general manager in the office. And then we have an operations manager who is just an absolute all-star. And he runs all the crews. So he makes sure the crews are set and they know what they're doing. And so it's running extremely well, with people in the right seat on the bus, so to speak. And so, yeah, we believe strongly that you should be doing what you love, and then you'll be best at that job. So
With that split and Jack going, and presumably you lose that operations side of things, was it an easy transition? Did you have somebody already in place that you knew you could elevate into that position, or did you have to hire from outside to fill that position of operations?
no, so by the time we ended up splitting was 2014. At that time, both of our sides had pretty competent operations managers. Even by that time, Jack had sort of pulled back from his involvement in operations to a point where he had a guy running his side of things and I had a guy running my side of things. So it was a pretty easy split. There was an obvious seam right through the business that made it easy for us to separate the two companies. So, and over the years, you start to, as much as we had a great partnership for many years, you start to have little differences here and there. And so the companies were almost operating completely separate from each other. So it just seemed like a natural move.
Just something that's curious to me, Adrian, as we kind of go through your story, a lot of business owners struggle with delegation and giving people things to do where they're not micromanaging, especially when you're like an owner operator and you're designing and you're building and you've got your hands on it, it's difficult to give that to somebody else because it seems like it's your baby, right? And it's your business. You started it as your baby. Has it been a little bit easier for you, considering you bought into a company and then split off? Um, that's my first question. Has it been easier for you to delegate, having bought into a company? And then the second part of that is once you go off on your own, all of a sudden it's 100% yours. Have you found a little bit more difficulty with that delegation side of things, or do you still have? Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Two-part
Yeah,
question.
so I think it's a good question that I can't answer because I don't know the alternative.
Okay.
But what I obviously my situation played out the way that it played out, and so I have no frame of reference to see what could it have been. But I guess what I've learned over the years is that my character is a and there's so many different personality measuring tools that you can use. My character is a low detail character, so I'm a sort of a big picture person, and so um, I think it's difficult for high detail people to run large companies because I think it's very difficult to let go of all those details. You want to be in on them. Um, Nobody has the brain capacity to just be on every detail and then scale that over, 3 crews, 10 crews, 20, 30, 50, whatever. So at some point you got to learn, you got to let go. Now, if you have a character that easily lets go, Jack taught me well. Jack never micromanaged anything. If you showed any sort of initiative, he'd give you a little kick in the rear end and off you go. And at the end of the day, if you did great, he'd praise you, and that was enough motivation. And these guys would go and work, and they just wanted to impress him. And the more they took on, the better. They just took off. They flourished, and good people will do that, I think. So I think a lot, to come back to your question, I think a lot of whether people are able to let go of things or not has to do with their character. I think it's good for people to be honest with themselves. If they have a character that's really highly detailed, this is gonna be something that they struggle with, giving things up. And so if you know that, there's a place for those business owners too. It's likely there's a lot of small, sort of what I would consider boutique landscape companies where the owner is very involved in it. And I think maybe those owners ought to be content with the fact that they're not going to run maybe 30 crews one day, but they're going to run 3 or 2 or 1 or 5, maybe. Like they'll have to see where their sweet spot is. And they're going to do a really high end. Think about if you compare it to cars, like you think about a Lamborghini, they don't make the kind of volume that, a Toyota would, right? They're just different markets completely. But I mean, I'm sure the owner of Lamborghini is very proud, as would the owner of Toyota would also be proud. And So everybody's got to kind of find their niche.
Let's set some context for the audience a little bit on the size of Cedar Springs. How many crews do you run, and like what's the typical crew size?
So right now we're running 13 construction crews. On top of that, we have 3 carpentry crews and 3 masonry crews. So that brings us up to about 19 total construction crews. On the maintenance side, we're running about 5 maintenance crews, but then we're running a couple of, I think we're at 3 enhancement crews. Those 3 enhancement crews are almost like a construction crew in that they'll also do small construction jobs, but a lot of more planting jobs. In the springtime, they're doing a lot of annual planting and mulchings, that kind of thing. But so yeah, and they're always a little bit in flux. Ideally our crews are three people. Sometimes they're four or five. Sometimes they're two. Um, Mike has our operations manager has the enviable job of moving pieces around from day to day where the need is, right? And sometimes a job, like let's say doing a huge sodding job, you might pull a couple of laborers from one crew, and instead of them having three for the day, they're at two, and then you got, maybe you're running six or even eight on a sodding job for one day. So this kind of thing happens regularly, where we kind of bob and weave based on what's going on. Having a lot of crews makes that easy to do, because you can kind of you can push and pull as needed. So anyway, so that gives you an idea of the scale.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. It's crucial to review your financial statements on a monthly basis so you can diagnose areas for improving your business's financial health early before they become significant issues. Too many contractors wait until the end of the year to review their financials as they file taxes, when it's often too late to take action to change the outcome. Cycle CPA not only handles bookkeeping and taxes, but they also ensure that you're armed with financial data on a monthly basis to make key business decisions. They offer benchmarking, cash flow forecasting, and assistance in developing targets for financial metrics. With their team of accountants specialized in the hardscape and landscape industry, they currently work with hundreds of companies in this field. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. So getting into something that I've been more and more curious about, especially this year with the podcast, is more so the structure of a company, the roles and responsibilities as you get higher up into that hierarchy structure of a company. Adrian, you are the president. What is your typical day-to-day or roles and responsibilities within the company?
Okay, so I'll start with the day-to-day. Because I'm heavily involved in sales, sales take up, I would say, 80% of my day. So I will typically be at our sales. So we have a sales office, and then we have two operations yards. I head to our sales office in Oakville. We have an operations yard in Dundas, Hamilton. Then we have another operations yard north of Toronto in Bradford. But my day-to-day is to be at the office. Our administration and our design teams are there. And I'm liaising with our designers, with our sales team. And I'll have sales meetings there. I'll meet with the design team there. But a lot of times I'm meeting clients and doing this sort of the client interaction, showing them the design, showing them the quote, all that kind of thing. Then there's, sort of to your second question, we have an executive team, which is made of our operations manager, our general manager, and our financial controller, and myself. So the four of us make up our executive team, and we meet monthly. And those monthly meetings are our monthly financial meetings, where we'll review the month prior, as well as an agenda of sort of zoomed out high level things. Maybe it's procurement, maybe it's possible business acquisition interest, things of that kind of nature. Then we also run a weekly scheduling meeting where all our project managers and our salespeople and our operations manager and general manager will meet once a week. We'll meet at our Dundas yard, and we'll just review the schedule and make sure the clients are getting well taken care of. Review all the projects. People are kind of sharing their wins of the past week, how things are going. So those sorts of structures help sort of keep the day-to-day flowing pretty well.
Gotcha. With design and sales, just the way you were talking there, I'm going to make the assumption that you have designers and then you have salespeople. How do you go, and if that's true, how do you go about marrying the two so that there is no lapse in communication of what the client wants, needs, etc.? Do salespeople and designers, do you have one to one and they go and meet the client and that's the consultation, or does the salesperson go and come back, talk to the design? How does that whole kind of structure work?
Yeah, it's a good question. The sales our salespeople are designers in a certain sense. Like typically our salespeople have been designers and have moved into sales. So I would say at the beginning, there's already a sales guy meeting the client. But our sales guys are no longer doing the actual drawing. So what they will do, they'll take down a wish list from the client. Once the client has committed to an actual design contract, the sales guy will work with the design team to put a concept together. And I would say 9 out of 10 times the designer and the salesperson together will present the design to the client. So the client will come into the office in the boardroom, we'll present the design there, and it'll be a collaborative presentation. And in that way, the designer will get the feedback directly and will be and any future meetings between the client, the designer and salespeople will also be in those meetings. So we found that to work well. I know having a design studio where clients can come in has been a game changer for us. I know that that's not the case for a lot of companies. Before we did that, we used to have every meeting at the client's place. If there are companies listening to this that are sort of thinking whether they should or shouldn't do this, I think if you have an opportunity to have a space where you can bring clients in, it's a space that you're proud of, that lends credibility and to your company. People can see that you're going to be here for a while. You got probably pictures on the wall, or we've got a TV in the front lobby, sort of scrolling through a pictures of projects that we've done. We've got Landscape Ontario awards on the wall. That kind of thing just lends a lot of credibility to your company, and that's worked really well for us. And I think that when clients come in, they feel, there's a lot of contractors out there that can take advantage of the clients. And I think when people come to a physical place, I think they feel reassured that that's not going to happen. And so that's helped us a lot. Anyway, back to your question about the designing. Yeah, we do it collaboratively. And I think and even the design team, they'll huddle our design team, which is a group of 4 right now. They'll meet every morning at 9:30 and they'll huddle together and they'll kind of talk about what they're doing, and they'll sort of help each other bounce ideas back. It's a sort of an open office workspace. So it's very conducive to sharing ideas, and which is important for design because it's very creative. So you need to have an environment that promotes creativity. So.
Gotcha. And then when it comes, you mentioned your salespeople are typically were designers, so they have that sort of experience. Is it in your business typical that somebody starts off as a designer and then evolves into a salesperson, or do you hire for salespeople outside of the business and designers, or can you even have somebody in the field want to become a designer? Where does that kind of movement within the business look like?
Yeah, and I mean, we've only been around for 30 years, so I don't know. And in the last 10 years, I would say our sales team. So I've been there the whole time. We promoted a designer to the sales role maybe 3, 4 years ago. We have another salesperson who's not a designer, but does more sort of maintenance sales and small construction sales. So, and that salesperson sort of straddles in between, but we sort of send design opportunities to the salespeople based on their competence or their skill level, that kind of thing, right? But I would say in the future, if we needed another designer, or sorry, salesperson, and a designer was available, that's the route we'd go.
Mm.
Um, we're not in that position right now. We don't need another salesperson right now, and we don't have a designer that we're willing to give up right now. And so, thankfully, we're not in the position where we have to make that call. But I would say that we're open-minded. I think somebody from the field could fill that role because if you've been a foreman for a long time, I think you've been around landscapes long enough to have some pretty creative ideas, and I think if you couple that with a strong design department, I think you can come up. You could present a pretty good product to the customer. So I'm open-minded to who would fill a sales role.
When it comes to especially your executive meetings, you did mention some things that you go over in those meetings. What what typically are I guess maybe performance indicators that help you decide what needs to be fixed or solved in the business? And I'm sure there's different ones from different executives that you could go into, or maybe your own. But what are you looking for in those meetings to be able to say, hey, this is a problem and we need to find a solution for this problem in our business?
Yeah, so we've been doing these meetings for a long, long time. Our profit and loss statements are very, very detailed, and we have a lot of history. And so, um, I mean, just about so our controller is highlighting anything that's irregular, and he's doing this regularly, right? So, if, for example, our repairs and maintenance are historically, just to pick a number, maybe are $20,000 a month or something like that, and then all of a sudden you have a bill of 40,000, then he would highlight that, and we'd have a quick discussion what happened there. Um, we're looking at profitability. We're looking at profitability by crew. We're looking at profitability um, by department, maintenance, design, construction. Um, we're looking at a few different ways. I mean, we're looking at all the numbers all the time, and so we have our finger on the pulse pretty closely. If we're tracking a larger project, then we'll track that thing separately just to see how it's doing, just so that the it's not being lost, and perhaps maybe you're doing really, really well on one job and it's skewing all the other numbers, or maybe you're doing really poorly on one big job. So we'll try to look at our numbers in a bunch of different ways to make sure that we're seeing a clear picture so that we're able to sort of adjust. We also try to get regular feedback to our estimator. So his estimating, we talk about doing the best job we can all the time. So um, excellence is promoted in our company, not just in the field in terms of providing a good product and experience to our customer, but also being able to properly estimate a job so that we're not charging a penny too much or too little, right? So if you're charging too much, eventually that's going to go bad for you. You're going to lose customers on price, and you're not giving good value to your customer. Too little, and the company's going to hurt. So it's really, really important that we're very consistent in our pricing. Now, that's hard to do in this industry, as you know, but that's at least the culture that we try to promote.
Talking about culture now, have you made a concerted effort to create maybe a mission statement or vision of the company and communicate that to your employees. Has that been at all a conversation in the company, and is that available to employees?
Absolutely. And this is a big, we spent a lot of time on this a while ago. We have a vision statement, we have core values. We use these regularly. Every time we meet with our team, we promote our vision statement and core values. We hire based on our core values, we fire based on our core values. And um, any chance we get, we will promote the core values to the team. So one of the ways that we do that is we'll have, and our core values are pretty kind of standard stuff: excellence, accountability, integrity, these kinds of things. I think there's 7 of them. Um, our vision statement is providing beautiful futures to our clients, to our employees, and to the communities we serve. So that's the vision. And every decision that we make has to provide value either to providing a beautiful future for our clients, which is what we build, providing a beautiful future to our employees, which is who builds it and who we are and the people that we are, and the communities that we serve by extension. So all 3 of those in some kind of balance is what we're aiming for. And then our core values really are our DNA. It's who we are. We want to be at the core good people. The leadership group, including myself, we're Christians. We believe that we were created by God and that we work on this earth for His glory ultimately, and that He wants our best. He wants the best of us, and we ought to be doing that. And so, not everybody in our company necessarily shares the same faith as us, but we do promote the core values as being of the utmost importance. And clients obviously are the big benefactors. When you have people on your property who are respectful and caring and honest, it goes a long way in promoting a brand of excellence. And so we believe that this is what God wants us to do, but it's actually also a really good idea for businesses to operate this way. So
Are employees evaluated based on all of that as well as other metrics? And if so, how often are employees evaluated? And are they formal, informal meetings with them? And how do you go about that?
yeah, so that's interesting. So the evaluations are done formally once per year, maybe a little bit more often with new employees. Formally once per year, they're evaluated mostly on the core values. The core values encompass every part of what an employee is doing there. And so, you need to care about safety, and you need to care about being professional, and you need to work hard, and you need to be a person of integrity, and you need to be caring of other people. If you're missing any of those, there's going to be problems, and those problems, if they're identified, and let's say there's an issue with somebody, maybe treating another employee improperly or whatever, this person would get called into our HR by our HR person, and they would have a discussion based on the core value. And at the end of the year, when we have our regular formal reviews, then we go through and we evaluate them, and we show them where there's opportunity for improvement. And obviously people are always looking to get paid more money, and we want to pay people. We want to pay people to the highest possible levels, and core values are a really good way of showing people where they have opportunity for growth.
talking about pay, do you guys do any performance-based bonuses, especially those in the field that complete a job before the amount of hours or anything like that? Pay for performance, anything?
Yep. So we do a bonus, but we don't do a bonus based on like specific jobs. Um, Part of the problem is in our industry, it's so difficult to identify every conceivable thing that would impact a job. Sometimes it's the guys you're placed with. And so we really want to have a culture of people working together. We don't want people to feel like the bonus is the be all end all, right? Because there's times when I need your lead hand to go help out on this crew. Our operations manager can see all the jobs. He can see that this client's got a party this weekend and we need to pull resources from here to get that one done. That's more important. We don't want bonuses sort of clouding the view of our foreman to be like, this is going to affect my bonus, and so we really want to promote this team mentality. And so we do a bonus. It's end of year. We have a policy that if the company meets our budget, our financial goals, we have a company pool that we allot. If they go above the goals, that pool obviously grows, and it grows exponentially as you get above. So the company wants to make its sort of minimum threshold to pay for the costs of growing and all the rest of it. But we have a set aside pool that goes to bonuses in that pool. Like I said, it grows exponentially the better we do. And then what happens is our executive team will allocate the big pool to all the people based on a bunch of criteria, but that criteria heavily favors our core values. So if you're deficient in your core values, it's gonna minimize how much of that pool you're gonna get. And so, yeah, I mean, it's good. It's not it's not as incentive driven. Like, I understand the idea of, if you could get this job done really quick and we budgeted 3 days and you get it done in 2 days, you get $1,000 or something. Like, I can see some value in that kind of thing. It's really difficult to administrate, I think. So, and B, we've seen the issue. So we've tried a bunch of these things over the year, and there are pitfalls to doing some of those things. So
Yeah,
that's a
it's
long
very interesting, and it makes sense the way you guys do it based on the way your company operates, where you might be pulling people around. You're not necessarily always on the same crew there, and that could throw things off in terms of your production. With that pool, is there any sort of like visual aspect to it or is it communicated at all where this pool sits? Not necessarily dollar value, but where the progress is, and is that communicated to the employees? And with that, do you operate like an open book system at all, or anything like that employees know where the company sits?
So the easy answer is no, we don't. The more difficult question, the answer is it's something we've talked about quite a bit. We know other landscapers that are operating open book. We're not opposed to it. We likely will get there. But it means that you need to be really good with your accounting. Now, we've got an extremely competent accounting department. We're currently going through the process of trying to put an ERP system in our company, which will hopefully help us get to the level that we think we need to be. But we're not there yet. So I think there's probably a real sort of easy, simplified way that we could do it. We do sort of a real quick and dirty way. Sort of quarterly, we'll tell people sort of generally how the company's doing and a bit of a graph. But the trouble here again, there's issues with it because we've had it where the company has a really good quarter, but it's followed up by a sort of a mediocre quarter, and it's even at a point where we had a bad debt a few years ago that at the end of the year we were trending really good, but the bad debt just like wiped it right out. And so yeah, imagine all year sort of banking on this bonus that you're getting, and then the bad debt is something that's lingering, but at the end of the year is kind of at your year end when you're doing your financials and you're meeting with your accountant and you're trying to decide whether to write the amount off or, because you don't want to pay taxes on money you haven't received, but on the profit and loss, it's showing as a profit, but you don't have the money. And so, there's situations that can occur where you can set your employees up for a possible real disappointing time. And so I guess I would just caution any business owners to just make sure they've considered everything before they just go full. I mean, I suppose if you run an open book system, where everybody sees the profit, and all of a sudden at the end of the year, you just showed, hey guys, we have this bad debt. It is what it is. Like, what can those are the risks that owners take, right? So, but yeah, that's an example of something that could perhaps give somebody pause to just go all in and
I don't want to hold you up so much longer, Adrian, and I've got so many questions in my head for you. So I'm just going to pick a couple here. So bear with me and take as long or as little as you want with these. But I do want to ask you, how have you worked to get buy-in from team members to work as hard as they do in the field and to in the office and on sales and design team? What have you implemented, or how have you got that buy-in where people are showing up and they're working as hard to meet the goals that the company has for them, especially when it's not necessarily bonus based? Like I feel like that's a very easy way to try to get some sort of buy-in, is to say, hey, we have 100 hours on this job. If you do it in 80, we'll pay you the difference of those 20 hours as a bonus. And that's a great way to kind of get some sort of buy-in, a cheap, easy way to get some sort of buy-in. How have you done so in terms of getting that?
Yeah. So I see the angle of the question. I understand it because I think we're living in a time when people seem to be increasingly lazy, hard to get them off the couch, away from the whatever game system they've got. I can tell you that the answer to your question is culture. We have a really good culture, and it's one of those things that when you have it, you don't want to lose it, but getting it is not easy. So it's at a point where if somebody comes and joins a crew, if they're not working hard, they don't feel like they belong on the crew, and it won't be long and the foreman will be like, don't send that guy with me anymore. He doesn't work. He doesn't work hard. So there's a culture of wanting to work hard that starts with a foreman. Now, we didn't really talk about this, but we've had almost no success hiring foremen from other companies. We've had limited success with it, but I would say it's very rare. It's not nothing, because we have some good foremen that we've hired from other companies, but in almost all the cases, our foremen are self-made. It's like our farm system. Um, they start as an employee, and if they can hack it for the first few weeks, they really start to love it. And when you work hard, you feel good about yourself. And so, there's this we've got a really good sort of system where these young kids they come up through the system, they become a laborer and then a lead hand and eventually a foreman. And there's this sort of prestige in being a foreman. And um, in almost, I would say, in a large number of cases, when we've hired foremen from outside, they don't have the work ethic, they don't fit in. And so I guess I understand the angle of your question from that perspective. Um, so that's the way, I guess, in which we manage that question. We don't feel like we need to incentivize to get them to work. We believe that our guys are working now. Are they working as hard as they can every single day? No, I mean, we all have ups and downs. I don't work as hard as I can every single day either. But as a general rule, people come to work, and we promote it when we talk. We promote it when we hire, when we fire. In all of our sort of visionary meetings, we talk about this, and there's an energy and an excitement about going out to war today and fighting the battle and doing the best we can. And so we have that culture, and if there's companies out there that don't have that, somehow you need to get it. And when you get it, you keep it. You hold on to those guys, and that's, I guess, the best I can say about that.
Gotcha. What is one thing that Cedar Springs can improve on right now, or that you're looking to in the future, to get the business to wherever you see it being at that point in time in the future? Is there anything that the Cedar Springs you feel like you could improve on right now if you had the willingness, time, ability, or whatnot to implement it?
Wow, great
Putting you on the
question.
spot. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, we talk about these kind of things all the time. So we are in a sort of a continuous improvement culture. We talk about getting better at everything all the time. Now, obviously, you can only do so much. This year, I guess the focus, because the economy is a little bit depressed this year, where I'm specifically putting a focus on managing the sales end of things better. And so, um, being the I guess de facto sales manager, I've never really managed sales. I've just done sales, and um, sales have always come easy. This year things are a little bit different, and so it's forced me to take the role of sales manager much more seriously, and start to track and analyze the leads and see where they're going. So that's an area that we're trying to improve on. At the same time, um, our maintenance division has been growing, and this year we've put an emphasis on growing it. So, and it's, I don't know, about 5 or 10 years ago, we started our yard up north of Toronto, and it's occurred to me over the past few years that the way in which to grow our construction division north of Toronto is to grow our maintenance division there first. And so maintenance gives you a presence, maintenance gives you a customer base, maintenance gives you a lot of residual little projects here and there that can help fill a lot of the gaps. And so this year we put a renewed focus on our landscape maintenance program. And so we're trying to I wouldn't say improve it, because I think we have a very good maintenance offering, but we're trying to promote it and grow it. Yeah, I need to be better as a sales manager, I guess, is the easy answer.
Last question, I promise. I hope I'm not holding you up. And if I am, cut me
No,
off.
no, I've got time. No
Okay.
problem.
Because it's a question I ask every business owner at the very end of the interview that comes on the show. You can relate this personally, business wise, but what is one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning? And that could be from the beginning of getting in the industry, beginning of becoming a partner, starting the business, however you want to look at it. It could be personal, business related. But what is that one thing that you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning?
That's a really good question. One thing. Um, I mean, I wish when we set up our yard up north, I wish I started by promoting maintenance before construction because I think that was an error of mine. If I did it again, I would have done that first. Um, in business, as you grow in business, a lot of things evolve, and so to say that I would do things a lot differently, there's not a lot that I would change. I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes, but the mistakes that I've made have also proved beneficial because I've learned from them. I'm trying to think of more um, major flaws that I could try. I mean, the list is long of major flaws, but actual errors in judgment that I could save a business out there. I guess, I mean, it's maybe going back to my other point about culture. Um, for a young company, somebody that's starting their own business, um, I'm assuming they're a hardworking individual. And if I mean, you need to be hardworking to own a business. There's no free rides in life. So, assuming you're hardworking, I think what you want to do is you want to build a culture of hard work. All the core values are important, but you have to, at the very least, you need to work hard and surround yourself with hardworking. Hard work is something that can be taught. Um, and when you have that kind of a culture, you can't let it go. You need to continue to build that culture. Um, I don't feel like I'm answering your question, but I just want to impress that point on people because I know we're living in a time when finding good employees is so hard, and um, they don't they're not around. A good employee, you need to make them yourself. You need to grow them, and you need to pour into them, and you need to show them that when they put in an honest day's work, they actually feel better and do better. And your great employee is 2 years away. You don't have to go look for them. Find them in different companies. The best guy is the one that you make right in your own company. So that's the best advice I can give anybody out there who's having trouble with employees, which we all are. I know.
Absolutely. I think you did a great job there, especially tying it to what we sort of talked about on this really wide ranging interview. So, Adrian, thank you so much for bearing with me through those questions. We covered quite a bit here, and I'd love to have you back on if you would ever want to maybe do a deeper dive on one specific avenue that we touched on here. Adrian, where can our audience go to find out more about you, Cedar Springs, anywhere you want to send them to?
Yeah, I mean, our website is www.cedarsprings.net. That's probably the best place to find us. We're also posting regularly on Instagram, and anybody interested in following us, that would be great. And yeah, it was my pleasure to be on, and I'd be happy to join you anytime.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If you enjoyed this one, I would really appreciate a 5-star rating, review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you are listening to this on your devices. That really helps the show, and I really do appreciate that. As well as I do really appreciate the feedback that we get with episodes, especially newer episodes where we're kind of bringing on a new topic, such as this one, or guests that we haven't had on before, and questions that you wish I would have asked. I do really appreciate that feedback. You can always catch me at How to Hardscape on Instagram. That's an easy way to send me a message. Or you can just go to howtohardscape.com. We got tons of free resources there. I rarely talk about these. We've got a budgeting, estimating, pricing, landscaping, jobs, projects course that is completely free. Lots of information in there. We've got hundreds of articles from installation to marketing and so much more. And like I was saying, our software, if you're looking to step up into a software this season, which includes budgeting, estimating, job costing, time tracking, scheduling, employee management, our installation courses, and so much more. And we also want to say thank you to our sponsor, Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.